1KD Immobiliser, be gone! Are you using a 1KD in a conversion? Or is it in a stock motor vehicle and it's got a problem? I have quite a number of people talk to me about doing engine swaps on the KD engines now. And I've often been told that you can't use the engine because it's got an immobiliser. That's crap. Yes, they have an immobiliser. Either it can be wired incorrectly, or it can be flashed off. I'm going to tell you a story about this truck here. It's a mate's truck. I saw he was having trouble on Facebook. And I don't normally work on diesels, but let's have a bit of a talk about it. And somewhere mixed in here is hopefully some helpful information about, one, diagnosing the factory system, and two, the fact that we can flash the immobiliser off these. It's not my main market, okay guys? I do 1UZs. But I'm also about sharing information so guys can make good decisions and get the right information and see what's really able to be done with this sort of stuff. So mate's truck, done a shitload of Ks, and he's driving it, and it played up, didn't start properly. Gave a bit of a wiggle, a bit of a... and it started again. For a little while. Next time he went to start it, after driving home, it would just crank, fire and stop. Crank, fire and stop. Crank, fire and stop. So they head into a workshop who start diagnosing why it won't run. They suggest ECU. They suggest wiring loom. They're checking stuff over, fuel supplies, pumps, a whole lot of suggestions. They eventually plug their scan tool in and they come up with, it's got an immobiliser fault in there. So they call the locksmith. The locksmith turns up, and what he notices that the garage hadn't noticed was the security light wasn't flashing. That one, no flashing of the security light. Plugging their scan tool in, they found that it had an immobiliser fault recorded in the scan tool. Basic stuff. The locksmith said, hey, the key is actually the chip in it's communicating. You can do a little bit of a test on that, but there's a problem in the truck. They were wanting to pull wiring looms out and pull stuff to bits. It was clear that they were over their heads on this system, and just through lack of knowledge. And we need to share this knowledge so more people can understand what's going on. So he put it on a trailer, and Mike brought it over to me. I got a shitload of guys, mates called Mike, and it gets really confusing. I might call this one, he's Michael, we'll call him Mike, full name. So, I get it, he tells me the story, I plug my scan tool in. Now my scan tool's old, it's really old. It didn't pick up an immobiliser fault. It didn't communicate with the immobiliser ECU either. So these things have got a key. They got a key reader there. Then a lot of the signals go down and they travel through this fuse box. And there's an immobiliser ECU in here. It's up, like up here. Okay? And then the signals go over to that fella, the engine ECU. I got the diagrams, right, got the diagrams. So we didn't have an immobiliser fault on my scan tool, but my scan tool's old. So I got Jason's scan tool, and his brought up immobiliser fault. But it wouldn't communicate with the immobiliser ECU. It can communicate with the engine ECU, but not the immobiliser ECU. The immobiliser ECU. I just happen to have another Hilux here, which happens to be an auto, which happens to be my own, which I purchased recently for another project that I'm working on. We won't discuss that one too much further at this point. So we got no flashy. We can communicate with that ECU. We can't communicate with the Immobiliser ECU. The car cranks, fire, stops, cranks, fire, stops. Doesn't crank, fire and stop now. That's because I've removed the Immobiliser. Flash that off. So we grab the scan tools. This is rattly, eh? Nah. So let me get to where I'm going. We'll turn this off because it's noisy. So I happen to own this one. We can see here, look, we got a flashing of the security light. Security light goes out when I put the key in, and it starts up terribly. So I happened to buy this one, which was really handy for diagnosing. We plugged the scan tool in. I could communicate with the engine ECU. I could communicate with the Immobiliser ECU. And Jason's scan tool would do the same. This one brought up a whole lot of faults, like number 2 injector driver open circuit, boost pressure, air temp sensor, a whole lot of stuff. And on a side note, we got a compression gauge. We compression tested it. It goes 400, nothing, 400, 400. I'm not sure I can blame my mate's compression gauge for being faulty, but I think 75% still a pass. So 75% of this motor is good and got good compression. But that, of course, is a story for another day. This one, we've got communications, Immobiliser ECU, factory ECU. So the other one, could it be an ECU fault? It is possible to take the ECU out of that one and put it into this one. Okay, so if you want to do so, what you do is you bridge TC in the diagnostic box to ground, to earth, or E1. Leave the key on for half an hour. Take the key off, take the jump out, come back and you'll start it up, okay? This one's already had an ECU swap, and you just, as I said, you pop it in, TC to ground, leave it half an hour with the key on, and the ECU aligns itself with everything in the vehicle. So that's how you solve that problem if you're swapping ECUs on these later model trucks. So the big guy's scan tool gets in just fine. So the little Foxwell gets in, communicates engine, but not with the Immobiliser, just like mine. Has also brought up a code for Immobiliser fault in this vehicle, which is kind of handy, isn't it? Handy you've got a scan tool.
It gets into, you got into the thing, I think. No, it didn't.
No, this didn't, because it was faulty, remember? Otherwise you had to pull the dash out. I was going to make you pull the dash out if it wasn't. So Jason didn't really want to have to pull the dash out. You right there?
Bug flying in the face. No bother. Just see what it does.
Are you going in again?
Just see what happens. Be under Immobiliser.
Theoretically, the fault still exists because we didn't fix the Immobiliser. I just flashed it off, remember? You know, I cheated.
No communicating.
No communicating with the Immobiliser. See?
Engine.
You're right there. I'm telling a story here about what we did to this thing.
Oh, cool. Cool story.
Yeah, it is.
These more dragons.
It's born of dragon? G'day. G'day. You're not a dragon, eh? Your mum. So we had these faults. Somewhere here, over here. I happen to have all the diagrams for these Hiluxes. We're pulling these apart, we're putting V8s in them. I throw those diesel things away. As you can see by the one that I've got, stuffed motors, just throw them away. But in this case, it wasn't a practical solution. We needed to solve the immobiliser fault. Good diagrams help. So I check power supplies as good as I could around the areas, but the immobiliser ECU's up under that dash and it's not easy for us to get up in there. So it would have meant pulling the dash out. So I offered the owner, Michael, another solution. He said go for it, just sort it. So out come the flashing gear, out came the laptop, and we flashed the ECU, got rid of the immobiliser. She's gone, no more there. It's never coming back. This means that it starts like it should, it runs like it should, everything is good, but no more immobiliser on it. So that ECU would be perfect for conversions, or if this engine swapped into another vehicle, because the immobiliser is not there. This stuff is fairly basic, and part of it shows that before you rip into a job, okay, spend the time diagnosing what's going on properly. We had a bit of a discussion, we had a bit of a think as we went through it. As I said, this isn't my main field, but it's very similar to the 3UZ stuff. So we've applied the same principles as the 3UZ, very similar in the way the ECU operates, but at the same time it's way different. And flash that immobiliser off. I've had guys come to me about jet boats with these, and swapping into earlier trucks or vans. With this, it makes it a lot easier. So hopefully that's helped some guys out to understand what's going on. Hopefully it's gone a little way to clearing up the fact there's lots of bullshit out there in the market of guys saying, and people that just don't know. That's good, skids, eh? Oh, yeah. So hopefully that's been helpful. The customer's going to put this back together. Seeing he's a mate, he can sort that. That's his problem. He pulled it apart, he can put it back together. I've made it run, which is what I wanted. And just to summarise, KD engines, the immobiliser system isn't that tricky, and if necessary, it can be flashed off. We'll talk to you again soon. Catch you later. Poppy, what are you doing? Come here, get up. Good girl. Diagnostic dog. Hey. Hey, good girl. Good girl. Are you right there? Diagnostic dog. Good girl.